This is the Investor Connect podcast program. I'm Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of this show in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, family offices, private equity, and many other investors for early stage and growth companies. I hope you enjoy this episode. Interested in learning more about investing in startups, launching a new startup, and need to raise funding? The Startup Funding Espresso is a daily podcast in a short, concise format delivered to your inbox every day, Monday through Friday. In the time it takes to drink an espresso, you can learn about startup funding. To subscribe, go to investorconnect.org and put your email into the pop-up box. Well, hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today I'm here with JC Otero, COO and co-founder of Change4Change. Headquartered in Austin, Texas, Change4Change's mission is to democratize the political fundraising process by broadening the donor base, making fundraising more accessible to all, while combating the influence of big money in politics. It is this monumental challenge that compelled JC to join forces with Nik Kulkarni to start Change4Change in the fall of 2018. JC, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, welcome to be here, Hall. Thanks so much for having me.
You bet. So what was your background before co-founding Change4Change?
Yeah, so I have a mixed background where I've worked with a variety of startups at various phases, from early employee to a little bit more mature startups that have raised several millions of dollars. I've also worked with big corporations such as like Dell and Wells Fargo, and most recently Informatica. And so I have a strong mix between both kind of startups and big corporate experience.
So what led you to start working in this space, Change4Change?
Yeah, so I guess the space is like twofold. One is kind of the mobile application space, and the other one's like civic technology. And so I actually started working in the mobile application space in like 2009, 2010, when I was involved with one of Austin's early mobile app development companies. And over the years, I had stayed involved in various projects with other companies as well. And it wasn't until one of my close friends, Nik, he was just seeing how much money was being spent by kind of like dark money and big corporations and things like that, to where he had this idea to do something about it. And it was around fall of 2018 that, I was transitioning projects. And so I partnered up with him to get involved with this, to do something about fundraising and politics. That's great. And so what's your advice for people that are investing in this space? What do you tell them to do before they write that check? Yeah, and so this is actually like a very different space compared to other, startups that I've been involved with, primarily just because of the political nature of it, and then also just the timing of it in terms of like the election cycles. And so those are, big factors, as we just know. We just had a super election, and so now we're entering the beginning phases of the next cycle, which is, multiple years. And so in this particular space, it's one on, depending on what people's like political views are and what it aligns. Like one of our approaches was to democratize the political fundraising, and so being neutral to a party. And so that's something that definitely comes up from an investor standpoint on how they stand politically. Well, great. And so let's talk about the sector itself. How do you see the industry evolving from here? Yeah, and so it's definitely gonna be real interesting in terms of how it evolves. I mean, just from the past several elections, you see that there's more grassroots movements, and there's also more people contributing smaller dollar amounts. Now it's just a matter of making it like more efficient and streamlined. And I think like in the next political cycle, you're actually probably going to see a lot more involvement from fundraising on the micro scale, so like micro contributions. Great. And what's the growth rate of the sector? How fast is it moving up? Yeah, and so I guess the growth rate's really hard to pinpoint because it's being applied to like in different industries. And so like, for example, in the financial sector, there's been roundups applied for, well over 5 years now, and that's been growing tremendously. But in the political space, fundraising cycle over cycle has just been, more than doubling in terms of how much funds candidates are raising each cycle. And a very small percentage of that is coming through like new technologies. Great. And how many companies are engaged in this space? Yeah. So in terms of like political fundraising, there's like one really big player that's a nonprofit that's aligned to like the Democratic Party. And there's a few other, maybe handful to niche players that help fundraising in other avenues, whether that's providing maybe like an online website that has a process to do that. And so it's definitely not a space that has hundreds or dozens of companies trying to provide the same solution. I think it's primarily because of the niche that it falls within, like civic technology. Well, you talked about a moment ago about some of the political challenges, but aside from that, what are the other challenges in this space? So a few things in terms of the challenges in the space is, one thing that we've had to do as a company as well is expand the way that we our solution offering. So at first it was primarily just for political candidates and campaigns. But as we all know that has cycles and it goes in ups and downs. So what we've done too is we've been able to white label this technology. So in that way we can make it available to nonprofits. And so nonprofits, obviously fundraise year round all the time, even though political candidates, fundraise all the time, whether they're in office or running the office, well in advance, they have much higher influxes of fundraising efforts depending on where they're at in the election, whereas nonprofits need to raise funds all the time. And so that's one thing that we've been able to do is because we've built this roundup technology engine that we've been able to design in a way to where now a nonprofit or a political campaign can now have their own kind of fundraising app.
Great. So tell us more about how Change4Change fits into this overall landscape in this space, and where you positioned and how are you differentiated from the others?
Yeah, and so in terms of like currently right now, the way that people contribute towards political campaigns is they have to do it like in one-off candidates, and people that are involved politically, they oftentimes support several candidates because at different levels of the government. And the way that we're different is we actually provide a platform that helps consolidate all that. So instead of having to track 5 or 7 different candidates through 5 different sources or so, we have that platform that centralizes it all to where you can get all the news, information, upcoming events, and then also be able to contribute either one-time donations, regular donations, or be able to round up your change all in one source.
Great. And what's the next step for you guys? Where are you taking it from here?
Yeah, so we're taking it right now is we're actually exploring options to either license it to specific candidates or parties, while also at the same time too in discussions with some nonprofits to white label it more at scale.
Great. And what do you think is the long-term outcome for it? Where do you think it will go? Is it a company that will exit, and who might buy it?
Yeah, I think with how we've been able to build the app on a very kind of bootstrap budget, is that we have a working engine already that has the potential to make it a recurring revenue. I don't think it's going to be something that'd be IPO or anything exit like that, and so it's not a business that it probably more likely get acquired rather than having some type of public exit or anything like that.
Great. Well, in the last few minutes that we have here, what else should we cover that we haven't?
I think there's, I guess, your listeners that are investors, as you're working with entrepreneurs early on in their fundraising, getting something going, definitely see it as a journey, and it may not be the best opportunity to enter an investment right away, but even that ongoing relationship, mentorship, insights, and even introductions to other people could then progress the relationship to where it might make more sense to invest later on. And so that's just some advice that I think would be helpful, is that instead of just seeing it as, am I going to invest in this startup after the first conversation, but see it more as like it's ongoing rather than, right off the bat deciding.
That's great. You can turn those pitch sessions into more of a collaboration than just a money raising thing, and do much more with it.
Yeah, in fact, I mean, a big portion of the money that we did raise actually came from introductions, either like, first degree from someone we first spoke to, or someone that actually then introduced us to someone else afterwards. And, so it's a great thing about just getting feedback and being open to it. And then, especially being open to meeting whoever someone thinks you should meet.
Great. Well, how best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
You can definitely visit the website, Change4Change.co. That's with the number 4, or you can just Google JC. That's 2 letters, Otero, Otero, and my LinkedIn will come up right away, and you can just contact me that way. It's probably the easiest.
Great. We'll put those in the show notes. I want to thank you for joining us today, and hope to have you back for a follow-up.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Hall, and keep doing what you're doing. You're a tremendous asset, and everyone loves you in Austin.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Paul T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.